Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to challenge number 3 of the Hitbox TV Challenger Face-Off. Today we've got N Faculty versus Unicorns of Lions, Unicorns of Love. Don't know where lion, like that's a really special type of unicorn if it's got like a lion on its head. But regardless, I am Spuddington and I'm going to be joined today by Metas.
That sounds like something out of Greek mythology there, Spud. You may have just invented something. A unicorn with a lion. That's something maybe Hercules would have to slay. But regardless, as you say, Unicorns of Love and Faculty, both two pretty good teams. Unicorns of Love, of course, doing well in the Ice Series just a few days ago. So they're a team we've casted a number of times, Spud, but I'm going to take more of the backseat here because you're into the lobby, so I'm a bit behind watching the stream.
Yeah, indeed. We have got some picks coming in so far, but nothing too surprising. It's Ziggs, Jax, Morgana, nothing too surprising there. LeBlanc, Nidalee, who is starting to see more and more bans, I think. Previously, people have been like a little bit respecting of the Nidalee, but still definitely get a very solid ban even before, and getting more so as time goes by. But the picks are actually coming in very, very quick indeed, because we've got the Orianna first pick, locked straight in, and then the Lulu and the Shyvana to go for N Faculty.
Yep, pretty safe picks there, Orianna and Lulu. I assume that Lulu's in the mid lane, of course, can be played as a support. Shyvana as well can be played at top or jungle, so fairly ambiguous pick so far, Spud, and that's just going to keep the side of Unicorns of Love guessing. I nearly said Animate there because Vivisachi has the AN tag, and he used to play Animate, which are another UK team, so I'm going to have to watch what I say.
Yeah, he's had that tag for a very, very long time now as well. I think like more than a year, and he's not been in Animate for quite a while. So, yeah, I might slip up as well. These things happen. It's okay, but obviously, I imagine Animate would have been at Insomnia, although I don't actually know. Didn't catch the majority of that tournament, so couldn't actually tell you of that. But he may have actually been responsible for defeating his own previous team.
It is definitely possible, but he's not been in there for quite some time now, Spud, so I'm not even sure if he's going to be playing against his previous teammates or if they've switched rosters around or whatever. But it's also doubly confusing because no one else on their side has tags either, so the only tag they actually have is Penta and AN, so it's going to get very confusing. Hopefully I'll be able to remember. Whereas on the opposite side, in Faculty, do all have that N tag, and speaking of which, in Faculty, hovering over Ashe Irelia, have they actually locked them in? I wouldn't expect to see an Ashe AD.
No, not so far. Looking now more, still looking towards the Irelia, looking also at the Leona, which wouldn't be too surprising if you consider the other picks here. And Faculty look to be building themselves like a hell of a team fight.
Alrighty, well, this is pretty interesting stuff here. Also, Thresh, Lucian bot lane, super strong right now in the current meta, and very difficult to actually push out of the lane and out trade. So it's going to be quite an interesting one. They have gone for the Leona, which picking Leona into Thresh is also a bit of a head scratcher because Thresh kind of counters Leona in many ways.
It's true, but it's only ever really like a soft counter, and after level 6, Leona still has some serious potential. So you've got to kind of get ahead early with the Thresh counter to the Leona, or you're very likely to start getting murdered at level 6. Just because it's just difficult to survive any bursty champion with a Leona. And come to think of it, I'm wondering if we're going to see a Graves this game, because we've been seeing him more and more recently. And I know, like, you're an AD player yourself. Like, I don't know if you've been playing any Graves at all.
Well, Graves used to be my main for a very long time, and when he kind of fell out of favour, didn't really touch him too much. I've been playing him a bit recently, and he certainly is getting a bit stronger. Obviously, he's had a few tweaks to his ultimate and such, which got a bit of a buff. So I think that's one of the main reasons why they're starting to come back, both Graves and other AD carries, such as Corki, which also people in chat are agreeing with. And it's just how the meta goes up and down, these ebbs and flows. But personally, I think Graves is still in a pretty good place right now.
Yeah, he certainly looks very much stronger than he has for a long time now. And that is true as well. Corki is coming back in. He's been coming back in for a little while. Now, of course, guys, this tournament, this game in particular as well, is going to be being played on the live server. So we have got patch 4.6, which does include the heal nerfs. That's why we're only seeing one heal per team at the moment. Although you never know, they might go for 2 anyway. And I'm curious now to see what the meta game becomes for the bot lane summoner spells. Because you could go for like ultra defensive and go like barrier on your AD carry and heal on your support so that you'll never ever die. Or you could look for like real all-in engages with like heal on your AD carry and then go with an aggressive summoner on your support. There's a couple of different options there, but I'm not sure what people are going to choose to settle on.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with what you're saying there. I think it's going to depend as well on the AD carry, whether you want to be an AD that farms or if you want to turn it into a kind of kill lane, which, you know, Corki Leona could definitely fit that second bill. So it's all dependent, I feel, on the mentality of the bot lane in question and how they want to approach the game. Potentially as well, I mean, something we haven't touched upon, but if you get 1v2 lanes as well, that's also going to impact on what summoner spells they end up picking up.
That's definitely true. This is... I don't really think there's been any changes in the last patch that should alter the meta game that we've been seeing in the last couple of, well, I'd say weeks, but I'm not sure patch 4.5 has actually been out for several weeks yet. But certainly the recent meta game has revolved very heavily around lane swaps, as you've said, and I'd be surprised if if the changes in the last patch really alter that particularly.
Yeah, and not too sure that's going to change a great deal, but obviously only time's going to tell. Takes a little while for the teething process to come across in new matters, but we're going to cut to a quick commercial break because, as Spuddington says, we're on the live client right now, so we've got about a 3-minute delay, and when you rejoin us, we'll be live for game number 1 in this best of 5.
We will build and the wounds will mend as we build it once again. as I fell to the ocean floor, fading light through an open door. Saw myself rise with the water. They thought they could keep me down, hold their breath and watch me drown, but all they did was push me higher. We don't care what they say, we will be here all day. We'll stay until it's over, till the world's out of sight. We will stand, we will fight. It's not over till it's over. Through the nights in the rain, through the time and the pain, we stand, we'll never fall. And then at the end of it all, we will win, we will chant. It's not over till it's over.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our live coverage here between N-Faculty and Unicorns of Love. In this first out of potential 5 games, I'm joined by Spuddington, and as you can see already, we're on the Rift, and I'm a bit worried for obvious here, Spud. He should be alright though.
He's going to have to dodge a hook maybe, maybe not. If the thing is, of course, if Sazed goes for the flash hook here, it would probably force the flash out of obvious. And that is arguably worth it because you're denying the jungler flash versus your support. But it does obviously then also introduce the random element of whether you land the hook or not. Probably would, but maybe not worth taking the chance.
Yep, so they're just going to back on away. We're not going to have any early action just yet, or are we? Because N-Faculty are now coming back in, and they're potentially going to try and steal away this red buff. Unbeknownst to Master of Sheepy, though, he is going to be lurking around the red. So this looks like he wants to start off on red buff, Spud, and this is setting up already as something could be kicking off very shortly.
Yeah, this is dangerous. Oh boy.
Oh, they're going to go in first. There's all the burst damage. Master of Sheepy has to flash away. The Ignite's ticking down on him, and actually going to turn this one back around again. Flay was picked up first as well from Sazed, so he wasn't able to fire in the death sentence, and that's going to get Master of Sheepy back to spawn, and he's going to be very slow on his red buff pickup now.
Yeah, obvious will also be delayed, of course. But yeah, this is going to hurt Xin a little bit more. And the other aspect, of course, is that it's going to make sure that they know exactly where he is, exactly where he's going, and hence his pathing. Whereas Shyvana, as far as they're concerned, could have gone to her red buff first. They could probably guess about that too, but she's a farming jungler anyway, so not as big of a deal.
Also, something important to mention is unless Pentasazed is Hylisang's Smurf or alt account, then they're not playing with their standard support here, Spud, as well. So that could certainly throw a spanner in the works of the synergy at bot lane. Definitely one to watch out for.
Yeah, that is something I forgot to mention in Champion Selectors. Yes, indeed, they are running with a Smurf right now. This is the Smurf support, but it seems to be a pretty solid team himself that he's playing in. Couldn't actually catch which one it was exactly, but he certainly popped up saying Challenger tier when I went onto his profile. So definitely very, very solid player, but we'll see if it hurts the synergy particularly.
Yeah, and we've been informed as well that it's because he missed his plane. So
wow.
That was after Ice Series, I believe. That's probably one of the reasons why that's occurred. So
that's the worst.
Never a great position to be in for sure. So he's going to be subbed out for this game. Let's see how Sazed fits in here to the rest of his team, and if he can make it work at bot lane. They do have a very strong lane so far. Mountain's gone in and just eats a bit of poke for his troubles.
Yeah, indeed. The only thing worse than missing your plane is getting to the plane and discovering you haven't got a passport. But as it happens, I'm not talking out of experience here, but yeah, so Vardags and co going to be continuing to push out that bot lane, but it's probably just going to go even for quite a long time. It does look like they're building up a bit of a wave at the moment, and they don't have to worry too much about ganks, even though Leona is good at setting it up, because Shyvana, although she has damage and mobility, is not going to be able to close that gap quickly enough to burst them down. So it's, yeah, just continued poke, continued push, and a little ward there for safety.
And interestingly enough, even though she did get completely obliterated at level 1 and had to go back, he's not falling that far behind Shyvana. About a quarter of a level or so, which is going to easily be made up, and he should be okay. Bot lane, you can see now that the combination of Lucian and Thrash is starting to shine through. They force back Leona and Corki. and get some of this farm to themselves.
Yeah, right now the swingiest lane, the lane that's probably going to have the biggest difference, is in the top lane. Trundle has already been forced back and forced to use his summoner teleport once, and Prombear is continuing to push him around in spite of not having backed. That's not too surprising, and it's unlikely to improve in the immediate future either, simply because Irelia can afford to build pure damage items, which really counters Trundle pretty hard, although that was really good play.
Oh, Prombear's taking a bunch of damage. Flash in there from Vivisachi as well. Can he make up this ground? No. And Obvious was coming around from the side anyway, so that could have proved to be dangerous there. And very smart player, I have to say, actually, from Vivisachi, because I think a lot of players would have bit the bullet there, got tunnel vision, and went hell for leather, and actually ended up getting killed for first blood.
Yeah, and with no flash available, it was just basically good awareness, because no flash available, Irelia has one of the fastest base movement speeds in the game. No way he was catching that up until his W or his E came back up, and those were both on like 10-second cooldowns. It was a really nice pillar though. I mean, it kept Irelia under the tower for like 3 shots, which is incredible good.
Yeah, exactly, and that's going to force Prombear to go back to spawn, use his teleport, which is now slightly further away from being refreshed than Vivisachi, who used it to get back into his lane in the first place. So that could definitely prove to be useful if they go for an early dragon or potential gank at bot lane. But that's yet to be seen. Prombear takes another shot from the tower, but pretty tanky right now. Did get his Ruby Crystal and going back to spawn.
Yeah, and this may actually be an interesting lane to watch once he's hit 6, because Trundle gets such a big power spike from his ultimate, even on an enemy with no defensive stats, because he can drain their base armor, and because it's just so much health. And now, this timing from Xin, this could be really bad for Prombear.
Yeah, coming to top lane, as you mentioned before, Flash has been used. That's going to be 3 Talon Strike, or is it actually? Equilibrium Strike locks him down, and Prombear is going to be okay, just all down to that Equilibrium Strike landing in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes Irelia so difficult to gank. Rank 1 skill, 1 second stun, pretty much on demand and pretty short cooldown as well. Then you add it to the movement speed, then you add it to the tenacity, and yeah, she's difficult to kill, and surprisingly so, and very good at turning around ganks as well. I was just keeping an eye on that bottom lane. They've actually flashed in.
Yeah, I was a bit confused there, because the Zenith Blade didn't land, and that's, you know, unless you're level 6 as Leon, and that's pretty much all the engage that you have, so using the flash as well, I'm a bit curious as to what they thought was going to happen there.
If she'd been able to get in range for the Q stun, Lulu was coming around and might have been able to chase in with the Whimsy speed. But it was a bit of an iffy play, and I'm really not that keen. Vivisachi, though, he's in trouble.
He is. He's level 6, though, so he's going to pop off the sub-jade, and here comes the re-gank and the counter-gank from Xin. They've turned it back around. First blood goes down, flashing from Obvious. He's going to secure the second and the third kill, or is he? Sheepy, yes he is. Gets killed for the double. Talk about dragon power. My goodness, Obvious just going huge.
That's basically why Shyvana is such a good champion, is because so much of her damage, even though it's very significant on a single target, is actually AoE as well. Stuff like her burnout, stuff like her E, even her auto attacks, her Q, when she's in dragon form, becomes AoE. Her ultimate is AoE, of course, as well, and that just adds up to, if 2 people are low and tanking damage from Shyvana, they're both going to drop like stones, which obviously just happened, and that's going to mean a very, very scary Shyvana, because she's been doing a lot of farming up till now as well.
Definitely. Just getting the Wriggles Lantern as you'd expect Shyvana to go for. Typically, Shyvana's, obviously this new patch has thrown a few spanners in the works, but before this patch, Shyvana wanted to just get those farm stacks up so you can get into Feral Flare as soon as possible. But the fact that Obvious has got 2 kills just escalates him towards that terrifying stage that much quicker. So it's another thing now for Unicorns of Love to keep in the back of their mind that if Shyvana pops up, it's going to do a lot of damage and be very difficult to kill.
And I've got to criticize here the fact that Unicorns of Love didn't go for the 2-on-1 swap up. Their own jungler is also a Wriggles jungler, he is also a Feral Flare jungler, that is undeniably true, but in bot lane.
Yeah, 2 ultimates have landed, they're turning it back around though, and Lucian picks up the first, he's looking for the second. The Mountain is way, way too tanky, but that was actually in Faculty instigating the engage with the Solar Flare, and it totally backfired.
There's a very strong temptation when you're playing Leona to just go, like, you hit 6, you're like, I've got so much damage and so much crowd control now, and they're so squishy, and you just dive in, and then you realize that your ultimate has like 1,000 range.
That's what we were talking about before with Shyvana. His top lane has gone down, but is Obvious big enough to deal with both these players? Maybe not. The tower's done a lot of damage though. Here comes Burnout as well. 3 Talon Strike is a bit too strong, and I have to feel that Obvious felt a bit too big. Maybe overestimating how much damage and how much tankiness he was going to bring to the table.
Yeah, but Sigurd's not done.
Yeah, that's for Versace. 6 for under. Sigurd did have burned the flash and ignite, but still will definitely take that kill. Probably unlikely to pick up the second.
Yeah, Lulu is pretty fast. Oh,
that was close.
No, not today, but very good effort there by Sigurd. Certainly picking up 1 kill. Has got a blue buff now, but I think we've had that before. Now she's going to have to roam back to that mid lane. The question is, did she use her ultimate? I don't think she did, so she should be okay to just walk straight in.
Sheepy.
What the? Oh god.
He got killed by White Wraith.
White has claimed another victim.
He did not have anywhere near enough health to do that. It was so close until the end, and then just die, so there's not much else to say about that. That was just greediness.
Important fact though, unless I'm... Wait, did he? No, he didn't actually get the camp. I thought he killed the camp and then died to it at the same time, in which case I would have said worth it. But, in faculty, are going to take advantage of this and going to get a free dragon, so... might have been a mistake there, Master. Or Sheepy. But not
I
White.
don't... Yeah, because like you say, the fact that he died, and obviously the executed message is going to come up for everyone to hear, that's just a free dragon. Like, as soon as they hear that, you just saw in faculty move into position, and there was nothing that Unicorns of Love could do to stop it. So again, just greediness, not just claiming his own life, but also costing his whole team as well.
Yeah, it's the same principle as if you get a pick on him, except Zin sort of picked himself. So, you know, I take what you're given on the side of N faculty, but yeah, Master Sheepy is going to be kicking himself and probably be mocked roundly for it. I know certain other junglers that have died to buffs at times have literally never lived it down.
Yeah, something to do with the red buff, I think.
Oh, maybe. There's also an even older incident with wolves, I believe. But
yeah, I've heard about that one a few times.
A few times over the years, keeps getting brought up. This is the problem. Once you've died to a buff in a competitive match, and actually, he didn't even die to a buff, but you know, people will laugh for many times. All jolly fun, up until the point where you get very, very sick of being laughed at.
Well, top lane, Bear's not feeling about getting laughed at from Versace, so he's going to back away. He is fairly strong though, level 7. Somehow manages to find himself 2 levels behind his counterpart, which is never a good position to be in. But then again, he has been camped pretty hard at the top lane so far. Going back in again, Zin feeling like he could put another gank down at top, but instead second guessing himself, moving back towards his own blue.
Yeah, that is one thing. If Shyvana does clean up in a double kill after Irelia is already dead, Irelia is still going to be the one losing out on all the experience, while Shyvana cleans out the kills and cleans out the lane farm while you're not there, which obviously isn't entirely ideal, but still, she should be kind of okay. The problem is when you're behind on Irelia against Trundle, it becomes very, very difficult for you to try and force him out of lane, which is what you really want to do. His chip harass over time is brutal.
Uh-oh, I don't like the looks of this. Both junglers are at top. Both junglers are trying to bait the other top lane into position. There we go. The ward is going to pretty much take all of that tense atmosphere and just put a knife right through it. And Master Sheepy's still at top lane though. So I'm not too sure if he wants to push the lane, because surely they can't hope to kill Irelia underneath that tower again. It's too big right now.
Yeah, there's always the potential though, of course, because just because Obvious has been seen or whatever doesn't necessarily mean he's not going to show up in this top lane. So Versace is actually not going to have any help here at all, because now Master Sheepy's been warded out. But if you know that the jungler was there, there's always that chance that they're going to come back, which means it's not necessarily a bad choice to just sit in lane, sap a little bit of experience, but keep them safe from ganks.
Yeah, they are going to go for the tower instead. It's taken down, but so is Master Sheepy's health bar. Bear's taking a bunch of damage though from the subjugate courtesy of Trundle, and now both Sheepy and Versace are taking a ton of damage from Obvious. They've turned this all back around. Versace is going to be going down. It's just a matter of time, or is he? Flash through, plus Obvious's flash as well will secure that kill. Dragon moves on to 3 kills right now, and that's massive for N faculty.
Yeah, that is very, very scary stuff. And they basically there mixed calls. Master Sheepy got the ultimate, knocked them both away. They could have safely disengaged at that point, but Vizisanchi said, no, we're going in on this. We can kill Aurelia. But he hadn't taken account of the fact that Flash was still up. She was able to keep herself alive long enough that then Shyvana was able to put out a lot of damage, but they couldn't focus on Shyvana because Aurelia would have always dived back in if that situation occurred. So a little bit of a dodgy decision there, and certainly not on the same page between both the players.
Yeah, it seems that there was a bit of a lapse in concentration, maybe a lapse in communication there, but something we haven't really brought the attention to a great deal in this game because there's been so much action at the top lane is bots, where you're finding Lucian actually starting to escalate further and further ahead on CS, plus he has the kill as well, so this is looking very good right now. We were asking about how Hylasang's replacement for this game, Sazed, was going to perform, and, well, the answer has definitely been given. He's doing a great job.
Yeah, indeed. And he's got big shoes to fill. Hylasang's a really, really good support, like especially on Thresh. But right now, it's definitely working out, as you say. I'd say part of that is the power curve of Lucian. He performs very, very similarly to other Triforce AD. Oh boy,
that was brutal. Vivisachi just steamrolled over Pronbear, no sweat at all, just using the ultimate, and that was it.
You do not want to be against a Trundle as a melee bruiser when you're behind. It's so unfair to play against because he just sustains through all that you can do, and he just does so much damage. It's terrifying. You can build double damage items on Trundle and just rely on stealing all the defensive stats from somebody else. So yeah, he's a scary, scary troll when he gets far ahead, and obviously the camp has worked well enough in that regard.
It has. Not just the fact that he's managed to 1v1 Aurelia, has 3 kills to Aurelia's 1, and a big CS difference as well. Well over 40 already at the early stages of this game. So very similar, kind of a mirror's image to how the bot lane is doing as well. So across the board, in terms of farm, Unicorns of Love doing a really good job. In mid, nearly a 40 CS differential between Orianna and Lulu.
Yeah, and we've seen teams like this before. Teams that aren't necessarily making the best decisions all the time, but they're just so damn good as individuals. I'd say Cloud9 Eclipse was, maybe not so much anymore, but was an example of a team like that. When they first formed as Apples and Sour, they were just a bunch of solo queue players. Then they became like a really good team as well. But at the start, they were just crushing everyone in lane, and it didn't matter that they weren't making good macro decisions because they just crushed everyone in lane and then snowballed off the gold advantage.
Exactly, and that's very reminiscent to me of how Heimerdinger Colossi, if you remember back in some of the earlier EUS Challenger series that we used to cast, Spud, how they used to perform as well at the start until they started to get that synergy together. They were just individually incredibly strong players that all won their individual lanes. However, Zodiaz is going to find himself Sigurd, there's another 2 players barreling down as well, but you don't really want to tower dive the shockwaved up Orianna because that can prove to be very detrimental to your health.
Yeah, and this is one of the problems with a Lulu mid. She doesn't have the damage to try and harass Orianna out early anymore, since obviously with her nerfs, and so she's kind of stuck playing this farm game. She'll still perform a very good role in team fights later on. Ooh.
Sorry about that bot lane. Cedrian had to flash as he just got a death sentence from Thresh, and that could very well have lived up to its name had he not flashed this, but it was a beautiful death sentence, max range almost.
Yeah, that's one of those things, but they've got to be careful now. They know the flash is down, and that means they want to be aggressive. But, hello, there is a lady with 2 things on her hands, stuck on her hands. She can't seem to get them off, ever, but she's there, and she's very scary, and they're sharp.
Oh my goodness, that Flay knocking back both Mountain and Obvious. Solar Flare was used, but there was no follow-up there at all. And that, in a nutshell, is why I said in Champion Select it. In many ways, Thresh can just turn around anything Leona throws at you. Such a good Flay, knocking 2 plays back in midair.
Okay, so arguably their Leona should have ulted first, since then they could have just jumped in, gotten the stuns down, while Thresh had no opportunity to use Flay, but knocking back both at once with 1 go is just so good to watch, and you gotta give respect to him. That was a really, really good reaction play there by Sazed, under quite a lot of pressure, since they'd probably have died if he hadn't hit that.
Oh yeah, definitely, no doubting. because there's a long way back from where they were stood to their own tower, and then you have to try and escape from Obvious, who is going to be able to just chase you down with the Bilgewater Cutlass and Burnout. So definitely I'd agree with you. I think at least one of them, probably both of them, would have died had it not been for those cat-like reactions of Saze. So done such a good job filling in those shoes so far, and in fact, so much confidence. They've landed another death sentence on Zedrian. He doesn't have the flash available. We'll be using that Valkyrie, but there's just nothing you can do because Vardax's Lucian is so good at chasing, and again, death sentence out of nowhere. Although this time I would have to question Zedrian. He was stood in a really odd position.
Well, it was like he was still treating it as if there was a full minion line when there was actually only one minion left. So all he had to do was just walk around the one minion and then go for the death sentence. And at that point, Zedrian was already doomed. So free push now for Unicorns of Love, but they are counter-engaging. Teleport.
Yeah, there's the solar flare, there's Irelia, as you say, teleporting in, but here comes the big troll as well, and he's going to be batting down Leona very quickly. Obvious now, he's big, but he's not big enough to deal with all 5 players. Double kill for Vivisachi. He could even get a triple or a quadra if they keep this one up. However, he's not quite going to have the damage. Another death sentence lands, that will be a triple kill, and they pull themselves back from the tower to wait for these creeps. And they're now going to take down the tower itself. Huge passage of play again for Unicorns of Love.
Zedrian, I feel your pain. Having an animationless ability. Is anyone going to get that, Blue? There you go. So having an animationless ability like Valkyrie, which is just like instant. You're instantly moving, and then getting it cancelled by a death sentence is the worst feeling. Because it's basically either the guy got really, really lucky, in which case I'm mad because he got lucky, or he outplayed me and read my mind, in which case I'm mad because he outplayed me and read my mind.
And will he do it again? Because so far, Saze seems to always be a step ahead of Faculty's bot lane, and that is starting to turn into big numbers. Fronbear's been caught again here. He's going to get slowed down from the Pillar of Ice. However, Obvious is round from the side. Has actually bit off more than he could chew. Doesn't look like it so far. He just crunches through Irelia at the end. Solar Flare, was that from Mountain? No, it wasn't Solar Flare. It was his W. He does have Solar Flare available right now. Is he going to drop it on the head of the troll? Zenith Blade comes in. Doesn't look too good for Versace. There's the Solar Flare as well. Sheepy came up, but realizing he's too low, has to back on away. And they do get the shutdown eventually.
In the end there, Sazed. Kind of looking at Sigu, looking at him funny, but didn't really fancy going for that. Obviously, had no backup, and for all the utility Thresh has, he does not really have damage, unless you build 5 Bloodthirsters, in which case he suddenly does have damage, and it's all front-loaded on his first auto-attack. But you auto-attack someone with like his normal, kind of, I'm not going to say like weak-looking, but it doesn't look like it's going to chunk you for half your health bar. It's very funny when it does.
I remember when he was first released, and this is going back a little while now, and I started playing him as AD carry, and it was actually quite scary to me how much damage he could do, as you say. If you front load it with his Flay proc and his first auto attack, and you would just chunk people so hard. It was actually quite funny at first, because no one knew how to deal with it.
I actually played once back in like Nasus's time. Like, I jumped on the Nasus bandwagon, and this is like my proudest solo queue moment on way before everyone else was like, Nasus is OP, man, and then he got nerfed. I jumped on that bandwagon ages before, and I had to play against a Thresh top, and it made me doubt my choice for a while, because it was horrible trying to do anything when he flayed. But Kronbear is actually in position to assassinate Vardax. This is bad.
It certainly is, and there's Mountain as well. Vardax is probably going to die in the next couple seconds. There we go. Irelia will secure that one. Solar Flare was available as well, just in case Vardax did try to be a bit slippy. And the bad point is as well of that pick, again, is that they can just move straight onto Dragon. And it should be pretty comfortable for Faculty to secure this one, because I was going to say they should get this, but they're actually stalling it a tiny bit.
Yeah, they will get it. The question is what they lose in return, because you've got the double push coming in. Trundle in the top lane, who is stronger than Aurelia one-on-one right now anyway, and the push in the mid, but they're not going to stick around for long. Possibly could have gotten a couple more autos there, but actually they're rotating top, so that's smart. Well done, Unicorns of Love, you've outsmarted me.
Yeah, and this all happened because for a few moments they stalled the dragon. They didn't go straight for it. There was about 10 seconds where they were thinking, do we, don't we? And that has just proven to be a free dragon in return. Very, very odd decision there from Faculty.
Yeah, they've ended up basically coming out worse in that trade, even though they got the pick. So Yeah, I've got to agree with you there. But it was very difficult for them to make the correct decision there because as far as they knew, that rotation in the mid lane was just going to go pushing in the mid lane. Arguably, they should have rotated Lulu away from the dragon when they saw the push in the mid lane because she is mobile, she's got wave clear, she could have responded to the top lane push as well there. But, as you say, the delay also hurt them, so a little bit interesting. Maybe they were expecting a contest. Again, this is tied to vision control though. They just didn't have a lot of wards down.
Man, just bringing the attention to that farm on Orianna. 25 minutes coming up, 303 farm.
No
Goodness
kills,
me.
no assists, no deaths.
Oh, Vardags, could be rip in peace kind of moment. Nope, he's going to flash away in relentless pursuit. But as you say, yeah, no kills, no deaths, but that's a ton of farm.
He is full on, like, going for the record right now. Like, I'm not even joking, that's huge.
Bot lane, Sheepy, Vardags again, but Sheepy's a bit too scary, a bit too big right now to be chasing down, especially when you consider that the rest of the cavalry was coming from mid lane. So smart play from Faculty to pull themselves back.
Yeah, I've actually got to say right now, Physics actually isn't putting down as much pressure given how strong one-on-one versus Irelia he is. And Promber's doing quite a good job, as is obvious, at catching out Lucien because he's rotating bot to farm quite a lot. I mean, it's a play that's very, very useful for Lucien because obviously he gets farmed. He's already very strong. You make your strong AD carry stronger. That is a good thing, but they're not protecting him and they're not using it as bait because he's done it several times and been caught. When you've done that several times and been caught, it suddenly behooves you, I think, to guard your AD carry because the enemy is very likely to try something that's worked in the past again and go for the assassination attempt on him, and then you can turn it around on them. Cunning tricks right there.
One of the scary things for me, though, as well, is that so far, and Faculty are losing this game, and they haven't even had a straight-up 5v5 fight. It's been a lot of kind of picks here and there, teleports being used across the board, and really Unicorns of Love just steamrolling a lane and constantly pushing. But when you look at their composition and the items that are being built up as well, Spud, this is actually terrifying if it goes into 5v5 territory. Orianna, Trundle, and Xin are able to conjunct together, synchronize together so incredibly well in team fights. And then you look at the items. They've got 2 Randuin's Omens to deal with Irelia, Shyvana, and Corki. That's crazy.
They are extremely strong in that department, but if you think about it, so is in Faculty. They've got Shyvana and Irelia to dive in with a Leona ultimate. They've got huge hard engage, and they've got really good follow-up from stuff like Wild Growth. Maybe not quite on the level of the Shockwave combo, but it's enough that you don't want to disrespect that. If you overcommit looking for the fight on in Faculty, you may well find yourself suffering, even with a really strong combo like that.
Yeah, but I guess what I mean is like the peeling potential right now for Lucien is just massive. You got Box, you got 2 Randuin's Omens. As you say, Shyvana and Irelia want to jump on top of Lucien, but if you're proccing 2 Randuin's Omens followed by a Flay and a Box, it's very difficult to lock on top of him. And then now just going to be pushing through this mid lane. Vardags is taking a lot of damage. Oh, another death sentence, and a Valkyrie is going to pop that flash, pop the Valkyrie as well. And that was ridiculous play. They're not going to secure a kill, but they're going to force the tower down regardless.
Okay, now, what do they do next? Baron is actually quite an option here because they know where Shyvana is. And if they go for that, though, they're going to lose the inhib tower here. She's got a Feral Flesh, she's got a Blade of the Rune King and a pickaxe. She's going to push really fast, but they've been caught.
They have. There's the flash as well from Vivisachi. Slows down Siggy and Bronbear, but it's not enough. In fact, is it? Talon Strike is just going to be firing down on Siggy, but Sheepy is pretty much by himself. And look at Shyvana pushing the bot lane. She's actually going to be able to pick up the tower and also the inhibitor.
Yeah, because they spent so long. Just because they got a catch on Cedrin, they thought, right, okay, we can fight this, and then we can win the fight, and then we can push their inhib in. They didn't actually get the kill because he flashed out, because he healed, because his team has very, very good peel for him. So they ended up delaying an awful lot of time. They still traded towers evenly, but when they didn't go for the Baron, that was when they really lost that exchange.
Here we go again. Says Sheepy taking point, trying to force the issue, but nothing's really going to happen. And again, they have to back away. And again, they have to be very worried about Shyvana. Okay, they can see now that Obvious is around mid, but for a few moments they're probably thinking, is he going to try and push mid? Is he going to try and push bottom? Like, what the hell's going on? They have to deal with him. And with his items that he's built as well, he's very difficult to lock down. Baron's been started.
He's got so much damage, obviously, it might hurt him in these fights because he's squishy.
Oh, he's at the front line as well. He has to pop Dragon's Descent defensively to get away from the action. That's not the position he wants to be in. Here comes the re-engage shot. It lands on 3, and that's going to be the end of Irelia. Rest in peace. And with Irelia being dead, with Obvious being low, they can't really hope to go back in, or can they? Because Corki can poke from range with the missile barrage, doing quite a bit of damage. Death Sentence comes in again. Solar Flare's not available, so they can't hope to lock everybody down. But they have done enough to keep them off Baron for now.
And Faculty literally dancing on a knife edge there. They were so close to losing that, but they get the tower for it as well, so they come out ahead. The pressure in the bot lane means they're going to get the dragon as well. This is very smart macro decision making by Faculty. And the other thing, of course, here is that they were playing such a dangerous game, but it played off. And even though they were behind, even though they had a weaker teamfight composition, even though they were up against some pretty hard engage, they still managed to peel off, they managed to disengage, and it's bringing them so many advantages.
Yeah, exactly true. Because they stopped the Baron, because they were low on hit points, and obviously speaking about Unicorns of Love, and mainly because the super minions were pushing down at the bot lane onto the Nexus towers, they couldn't afford to try and defend Dragons. So as you say, very smart play from Faculty there to secure the objective, and they're only 800 gold behind, so such a close game for 30-31 minutes through.
Yeah, and I gotta wonder now, what is Obvious going to do? Because he's actually built to split push this game. He's taking advantage of the fact he got so fed early, and he's taking advantage of the fact his team composition has so much kite and so much disengage, and indeed so much engage so he can rotate and join up, to just spend an awful lot of time split pushing. But I suspect if Trundle just dedicates himself to stopping Obvious from doing that, he's not only got teleport so he can respond more effectively, but he's got that ultimate, and Shyvana's so dependent on her resistances, so it's a very risky game.
Well, Pronbear is in a real precarious position. He does have teleport available.
Well, they can't chase that Baron.
Chasing him dead, and as you say, a Baron is still available right now, so they're going to have to at some point decide to pull themselves back. Pronbear eats a culling, and he will manage to escape, but again, look at Baron, it's going down.
That was just really bad decision making. You're ganking Irelia, okay, it might work, you might get that kill, but the moment they didn't get it instantly, the moment they couldn't lock her down with the death sentence and straight up chain that into the kills, they should have just given up at that point. They couldn't chase Irelia from there, and even if they got her, even if she died at the end, even if that last death sentence had hit and she'd been chained to her death, it just wouldn't have been worth it. It's a Baron, for God's sake.
Yeah, exactly. Has the 45 movement speed buff on the Berserker Greaves, has Triforce. You know the maneuverability of Irelia is huge, and as you say, as soon as they didn't pick up that kill, surely then you're thinking about, okay, well, we have to just rotate, we have to try and deal with Baron. They haven't done that, and now they're facing off against a split push, 4 players strong at top with Irelia going bot lane. It's going to be difficult for them to stop this one unless they can get a catch right here. Sazed is taking point, pops Talisman of Ascension, but again they chase after the kill, and this is allowing Irelia to pick up the inhibitor as soon as it respawns.
Yeah, they don't seem to be able to find the chances to engage, but Pronbear may have overcommitted here. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Master Sheepy isn't trying to just stick here, but they're playing such a good game here on Faculty, and such a bad game, honestly, macro-wise, from Unicorns of Love. I guess I should be pleased in a way that they're trying to prove my pet theory right, that they're a very laning focused and individually skilled focused team, because they're not making good decisions. Look at Vardags.
Why is he there on the second tower? Why is he trying to deal with Irelia and Obvious by himself? I don't understand. They're going to lose the tower anyway, so okay, you managed to stop the tower going down for what, 3 extra seconds, but now you're in the death chamber for 40. That leaves your team bare at top lane, and again, Faculty could go for this kind of 3-1-1 formation, pushing down 3 towers at the same time.
And now Pronbear is going to force Visixachi to sit in there. He's got Shyvana in the mid lane, and there's a man gap because Lucian is down. Now, does he save the mid tower? Well, he can try, but it's going to cost him the inhib to do it.
Yeah, because this is all down to the fact they're 4v5, and Pronbear is just going to be coming to his teammate's rescue with the Equilibrium Strike, but he's now going to take a bit of damage there. The Shockwave, they will secure the kill on Irelia, I'm sure of that. But look at the rest of the team, though, from Faculty. They're now pushing the top tower.
And look at where Obvious is. He's going to go straight back to that inhib. He knows that they can't afford to not commit to this top lane push. So what are they going to do? They're going to go for Mountain. Okay, they get the kill here. Not worth it. Not worth it. They're going to lose an inhib for it.
Ooh, or are they? Because Obvious could be going down. Yes, they will. And it's worth it for Obvious. Even if he dies right now, that was certainly worth it. Because, you know, the side of Unicorns of Love, they can't really hope to push too fast. They do have a few players up, and they could barrel down the mid. But in doing so, they risk the very real threat of super minions going in and starting to knock down the Nexus towers.
Yeah, and Lulu is going to be able to wave clear pretty effectively. Visix actually is now tanky enough to tank towers for his team. But with Aurelia back up, Mountain coming up in 10 seconds-ish, they're probably, unless they can get this tower down literally in the next 10 or so seconds, they're probably not going to be able to get an inhib off this push. Even if they do, they still lost in those trades for towers.
Yeah, Frombear taking point. This is bad though. If they get caught, that could definitely suddenly turn sour. Frombear has to get wild growth from Lulu just to keep himself alive. That is going to be a tower. Then he said Nexus tower there. It's definitely not the case. Here comes Zenithblade though, re-engaging on top of this one. Solarflare goes in. Nice. Again though, Vardak's in the wrong position entirely. At the front lines of an AD carry, you never want to do that, especially against characters like Leona. They get Shockwave on too, but Cedrion is going to be coming in, gets Death Sentence there, and he will be going down now. He's trying to save his AD carry's life. Zodiac gets chased as well.
We are apparently having some spectator client issues. Myself and Metas actually don't at the moment, but the stream may be a little bit screwed up. So we're going to do our best to just kind of describe what's going on right now. But basically, a fight win for Faculty. They're pushing down the bottom lane right now and going for the Nexus, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like they could even feasibly do this. In fact, that being said, Trundles there has a lot of attack speed, so he's clearing through these creeps. We'll try and do radio broadcasting for you. The middle inhibitor has just been picked up, so that makes 2 inhibs down with 1 standing, but it's vulnerable. There is no tower to keep this one safe, and they are going to be engaging off this one Obvious in the front lines as the Shyvana has Dragon's Descent available. Frombear coming around from the side. Here comes the desperation engage from Unicorns of Love, trying to force back in Faculty, and apparently you do now have pictures again, so you can see the devastation that has been wrecked upon on Unicorns of Love's base. They got pretty much nothing left, Spud.
But they still managed to repel a 4v5. That is what just happened to Faculty, so they've actually got to be concerned. The bottom inhib will respawn relatively soon, and if Unicorns of Love can just stop getting outplayed on the map, they will win this game. They have the better late game teamfight. They have the harder scaling carries, and that is gonna mean, that's gotta mean something in the long run here, but thus far, and Faculty have just been doing a better job of playing around that.
Yeah, and Faculty always seem to be a few steps ahead when it comes to big decision making, and that's going to be Blue Buff and Dragon also picked up for Faculty. Sigu, he didn't have the greatest of laning phases. He's still well and truly behind on CS, but look at that, 3-0. He has been in the right places, landing those big wild growths when they were needed, and even though Orianna on the flip side, Zodiac has yet to die, he's not really been able to land the huge shockwaves, but he's landed a couple on 2 or 3 players, but it's not really decided team fight so far.
Yeah, he's undeniably mastered the art of farming on Orianna, but maybe it's just because they've constantly been getting caught out, losing a man before the fight, and Orianna works a little bit oddly in like skirmish fights in the jungle. She's much better in open grounds where she can see what's going on and plan her position for her shockwave accordingly. But yeah, you've got to say, not been doing that much so far, and now Trundle is going to have to respond to this. I don't think he can afford to teleport in late to a fight, but really, in Faculty here, they're buying time, they're pushing out so they can then go and rotate for the Baron, because look at that vision control.
Yeah, and Baron is up in about 25 seconds as well, so it is certainly tense times right now for Unicorns of Love. As you say as well, you know, Orianna hasn't been the most of detriments to the side of Faculty, but it just takes that one shockwave, Spud. That one shockwave can easily win the game of Unicorns of Love, which is what you mentioned before, that late game prowess. They are that kind of composition that if you give them a chance, they will punish you hard.
Yeah, I mean, there are very storied cases of single shockwaves turning around games, and it looks like they're calling the bluff here. There is no bait. This is just going to be a counter engage.
It is. Here comes Sheepy in the front lines. That's going to be the solar flare, but only landing on Sheepy, which is definitely not what they were looking for. That's the owner going down first.
Oh!
The shockwave comes in as if we were just saying before about how big it can be, and it cleans up this fight completely. That's a 4 for 2. That shockwave was huge.
60-second death time is now as well. 50 now, but this is going to be a push that's going to be the inhib at the very, very least, and I think this is the game right now. Zodias is going to be so hard to stop because of his shields, and Visix actually is like a monster in how tanky he is, so this is going to have to be one hell of a defense from Siggu if he wants to stand a damn chance, and I just don't think he can do it.
No, I agree with you. I don't think he can stop this one. It's just not looking good. Second Nexus Tower is getting battered. 10 seconds on Mountain. The rest of the team's dead for another 20 odd seconds. They're on the Nexus. And even though Sigu's trying his best, Nexus will be falling. What did we say? They have the composition that can make the big plays going into the later stages of the game. And Zodian's had a quiet one. Finishes on the Bond, actually, 007. But it didn't matter because that shockwave was huge around Baron.
It really was. And there was another key mistake Faculty made in that fight. Cedric spent a lot of time in that fight hitting the Baron. They split. They didn't go for the counter engage. And they didn't go for the finish Baron and rush it and then retreat. They kind of did half and half. Then they got caught in a 3-man shockwave, which is just death at that point. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever needed an example of why you should never give up when you have a late game team composition, this is it, because they were so far behind. They lost every inhib at one point or another, I believe. And yet, Unicorns of Love, thanks to team fighting and individual skill, came back in and won the game overall. Really fun to watch.
Oh, it certainly was. It was a fast-paced, frantic game, and Unicorns of Love, as you say, individual talent kind of shining through at the end there, and Faculty, though, they can hold their heads high, that they did make some really good rotations throughout that game. They had good objective control, by and large, for the most part, so still, this is just the first game out of another potential 4, Spud, and that's quite a cool thing to be saying, because we could have plenty more games just like that one coming up.
Yeah, it really is, and I really like the idea of this tournament format here. But guys, we are just going to be going into a quick break now because we obviously have to get the players back into the lobbies and back up in the ranked order.